everybody and welcome. My name is Brini and this is part 2 of my OC redesign plus backstories. Today I prepared Ackerlea and Niina from my D&D OC lineup. Two complete opposites but still equally lovable. As always, I don't want this intro to be too long, so let's get into the video. We're gonna be starting off with Ackerlea. Ackerlea was my third in line D&D OC that I ever played. She is a half-elf ranger and she is 49, almost 50. She was actually born to a huge but poor loving family. She was one of 23 siblings to be exact, and she was the 6th oldest. Being poor didn't really affect her way of thinking of life, and most of her community really liked her. She never lied. She was respectful to her elders, and she was trying her best to find a job to help her family. But finding a job wasn't that easy. I mean, she was so young, no one really wanted to give her a job and rely on her like that. They lived in a explicitly elf community, and her whole family being half elves wasn't really the best example. They weren't necessarily mistreated, they just wouldn't live long enough for a job, and that is what got them to poverty. Their community wasn't mean. They helped them in any way that they could, but it wasn't always an option. They couldn't just give them money, but they would share food. Years of this didn't really leave Ackerlea or any of her family bitter. However, they couldn't just stay there, so one by one they left. And just like everyone else, on her 45th birthday, Ackerlea decided to leave as well. She didn't really want to leave her family or her community, but it had to be done. And she had to figure out what she's gonna do in life. The first town she got across didn't have a job for her. In fact, she was so incompetent that they just kicked her out. The next town was no better than the first one. She tried working in a dress shop, but she ripped all the clothes. She tried becoming a fisher, but she sunk the boat. She tried to become a baker, but she kinda set the bakery on fire. Nothing that she tried really worked, and it was starting to frustrate her a lot. I mean, how is there nothing that she can be good at except being nice? I mean, she knew that her whole life she would cause accidents to other people. It's just that she didn't know that she was this clumsy, or rather a natural disaster. Eventually, when she got tired of everything, she just decided to drink alone at a bar. She couldn't think of anything new to do until she heard a song. The song of a legendary woman archer who saved the world. This could be her destiny. This could be her. So she made herself a bow, a couple of arrows here and there, and the training started. During her training she met a crew, a strange one at that, but even if they were strange, she was as well. So they got together and set off into another adventure, and that is where her story starts. I think Ackerlea was one of my favorite characters to design, actually, because I wasn't actually just designing her, I was designing the whole party as well. And I might have the lineup somewhere, so I'm just gonna pop the picture right here. So she was actually designed for a one-shot. We had new people who never played D&D before, one of them being my loving partner who have only heard about D&D but never got into it or anything. And so our new DM decided to make this whole new campaign that should have been a one-shot but wasn't actually. I think this was the longest campaign I was in actually. Not completely sure about that one, but pretty sure. Now, since Ackerlea was supposed to be a one-shot character, I didn't really fixate on her backstory. I mean, half of what I said earlier was thought of on the spot as I was recording this. I just knew when I created her that I wanted her to be kind and also in a way clumsy. I wasn't aware, however, that my dice would also make her very clumsy. But being clumsy in a fight can be very entertaining, especially if the enemy can't hit you. And her AC was really high. In any case, she was a very fun character to play, especially with the crew that I played with. They all tried really hard to make this as fun as possible. And after figuring out that the story was pretty awesome actually, we kept the one shot going until the DM brought some horrible news. He was leaving for a few months, and so we had to change some things, and those things were the whole campaign. So we created new characters and started fresh. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings me to Niina. Niina is an 18-year-old human girl. She was born to a loving family and they were very wealthy. She was so wealthy, in fact, she had maids take care of her day and night. In a way, she was spoiled, not to the point where she was mean to others. She just got whatever she wanted whenever she wanted it, and being from a long line of wealthy and well-known wizards, at school she was being praised all the time, and everyone had high expectations for her. The pressure of the expectations didn't really affect her much. I mean, she was good at what she was doing. She was a really good wizard. The wizarding in school wasn't as fun as she hoped for. She had friends, she had really close mentors, but she was never completely satisfied with what she was doing. She wanted something more. So one day she went to the library and she found a really interesting book, the Book of Necromancy. But the book was there more for display rather than for studying. Not many could actually read the sigils. It was more gibberish than what she'd expected, but that didn't stop her from learning. So she, on her own, started filling the gaps in the book, and she was actually managing to do something. The further she got, the more she felt like she could actually hear the book speaking to her, and the more she learned about necromancy, the more she wanted to do something about it, do the spells, do the rituals. It was starting to affect her, and not in a good way. Eventually people started noticing that she was acting a little bit different. She was still the same old cheerful Niina. She was just a bit more in your face. After months of studying this book, she found a specific spell that really attracted her: resurrection. This thought filled her mind completely. She could actually resurrect someone? Like, that's completely insane. So she decided to try it. While everyone was sleeping, she walked into her mother's and father's room and she did something horrible. But it was no big deal, right? She could just bring them back to life. With some magic, she managed to get her parents somewhere into the forest, and she set her mansion on fire because why not? The townsfolk thought that the whole family died in the fire. While deep in the forest, she kept her mom and dad decomposing bodies just there. And after months and months of this, she decided that it was time to find another necromancer who can actually teach her. And so she set off. Our crazy little bean. She found a party, joined them, and they lived happily ever after. Hopefully. And that was the beginning of her story. Niina as a character is very psycho in a way. She's very sweet and lovable and upbeat. Think of Pinkie Pie from My Little Pony or Spinel from Steven Universe. Being very giggly and hyperactive didn't really make people think that she was insane, and she kind of hid it pretty well even though it wasn't intentional. But her whole I'm pure act works. It works for her, it works for others, and she just manages to get away with things like that. She doesn't necessarily hide that she's a psycho. Everyone kind of assumes that she's not in her right mind, and that's kind of like an oh well, you know, whatever. So she gets away with a lot of things. As for her design, I really wanted to get that childish, childlike look for her, and the whole I'm pure and innocent with the whole white fabric, kinda cleric-ish, and having an actual cleric in the party didn't really help in the future. They really butted heads. But yeah, all in all, she's a very fun character to play. She kind of just doesn't care where she hits, and if she hits, she would kill people just cuz. And when she would run into another necromancer, even though the necromancer is evil, she would be like, oh my god, so excited, I love you. And also, am I the only one who thinks of that TikTok girl whenever I say Niina? Niina. Yeah, that one. It was very funny to film this video. Every time I say Niina, I just think of that. In any case, that should be Ackerlea and Niina from my OC D&D lineup. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment if you want me to continue this. I'm still going to do it, but do that anyways. And also share with your friends, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. Boop. She was so wealthy. Boop. Book. Boop. Can you tell I like fire? Boop. 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 She is a half elf. She's a half elf. She's a half elf. Half. Boop. To help her family. Boop. They helped them in any way that they helped them in boop. Their community wasn't very mean. They helped them in any way that they could. Boop.